When it's time to do a timber sale on your property, some of the things that you want to think about: what kind of harvest is it going to be? Is it going to be a thinning or a clear cut? What kind of products are going to be coming out of the sale, and what the market is like? And what kind of sale process will it be? So will it be a negotiated sale? Will it be a bid sale? Lots of folks think, highest price is always the best price. And it really depends on what you're trying to achieve with your cut, is what kind of sale process you want to go through. If you heard that your neighbor got X number of dollars a ton, for their pulpwood, your land may not fit that same mold and fit that same pricing structure that they did. If they had, super dry ground that was loggable anytime. If you don't want to use a consulting forester, or somebody's knocked on your door and they've got an offer for your timber, you have to understand what you're selling and what you have to know if you're making a smart move in selling that. So just because they say, I'll give you $20,000 today, you have to know that you have $20,000 worth of timber out there, or 30 or 10 or whatever it may be. So it's important to understand what you're selling. Word of mouth, as far as who other folks have used to cut their timber, is very important. Everybody has different views of how a job is done, but if you find a company that has been spoken about positively more often than not, then they're probably a good measure. So word of mouth is very important, and ask your neighbors, who they've had success with, who has done a good job, so that you're selling for the right market price, and you're going to get a decent job in the end. Thinning, especially when you're doing a partial harvest and coming in and you're only choosing this tree or that tree, very important not to damage the residual stand. And so the logging crew becomes especially important in a thinning to make sure that you get a good job and that you're not damaging the stand that you're leaving, because the whole purpose of a thinning is to leave your better trees to grow on into the future. So you want to make sure that you're leaving the ground conditions stable, you're leaving the trees undamaged, and you're leaving your best quality trees, that the worst stuff has come out. We encourage folks that don't have knowledge of the markets and the timber and the local buyers that you deal with to use a consulting forester. The consultant can help you understand the process and help you through the decision making, so they can give you all the information you need to help make decisions along the way. Some of the things that the consultant will provide to you information-wise is knowledge of the local timber markets, so the different mills that are available to take the products that you have, and what that current pricing structure looks like, so you know what to expect. And the other side of it is the local buyers and the loggers that will do the job. And so it's important to know that you're dealing with reputable buyers and loggers that would take care of the property as they're cutting. And the consultant's familiarity with the local folks will help make sure that the best person is on the ground to do the job, as well as giving you a fair market price for it. So the consultant is there to help advise you on reputable folks to use, and then also oversee the process while it's going on to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Some other considerations in the timber sale process is a timber sale contract, and making sure that there's things in there that identify any special areas that you want to make sure don't get harmed. If you've got fencing or anything along a property line that is worth noting. Some of the other things to consider in your timber sale contract are the length of time for the contract. Typically for what they call a pay-as-cut contract, where you get paid based on the number of scale tickets that come in and the number of tons that are on the scale ticket. You give the buyer a year's time to be able to work with ground conditions and the mills and their needs and delivery schedules, so that everything can get cut and taken to the right place without negatively impacting your ground conditions. So it's real important, especially on a partial harvest, on a thinning, where we talked about how you're leaving your residual stand, that you cut it during a time that's not going to impact your ground and rut it up real bad. Another thing that can be considered is either an advance deposit, which kind of gives a little bit of money up front, and that kind of puts the buyer with some skin in the game. So maybe a 10% down or something like that to put some money up, and then they'll do a pay as cut after that. The other way to sell timber is a lump sum or a bulk sale, and that means that all of the timber is appraised and a value is come up with, and all the money is paid up front. So at the time that you sign the timber sale contract, all of the money for the value of the timber will be paid at that point, and then they'll have a period of time to cut. Especially on a larger bulk sale where they may have $150,000, $200,000 put up for that timber, you'll allow them a longer time period to get it, because they've paid you the money. They need to be able to log it at a certain time because they've got an expected mill to take it to. There's pros and cons to each different kind of sale, and that's something that your consulting forester can help you kind of think about, for this particular sale and this particular ground conditions and these kind of products. This is the best way to go about it. When you get close to the end of your time period on your timber sale contract, typically the buyer is going to want to extend. And some things to think about on whether or not to extend the timber sale contract is, what has the weather been like, and have they made an attempt to come out there and try it? Sometimes they'll come on and they'll get started, and then rain will come, and you or your consultant may say, hey, I don't want my road tore up, I need you to move out. And so if you've asked them to leave and come back later, all those kind of things need to be considered when you're deciding, whether or not to extend the timber sale contract. The other thing is to think about is what the market is like now versus when you sold the timber. So if your contract is a year or a year and a half old, and prices have dropped since you had your timber owner contract, it may not be smart to say, I'm done with you, I'm going to resell it, because you may not get that good of a price. So you need to understand what the market was like when you sold versus what it's like now. So those kind of things you need to consider when it's time to extend your timber sale. And definitely, if the sun is shining, that doesn't mean that your woods are dry. It takes a little bit longer, especially in the wintertime after a rain, for things to kind of soak in. And so, trust your forester or your buyer, whoever your relationship is that's helping you make these decisions, what those ground conditions are like.